Let's go back almost 200 years to August 25th, 1835. A byline written by Dr. Andrew Grant would appear in the Sun, a New York newspaper. The byline would read, "Great astronomical discoveries lately made by Sir John Herschel," blah, 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 a little bit, "made at the Cape of Good Hope." You look up there for the whole title. The first of a six-part miniseries that detailed how, on the plains of Africa, in 1834 January, with an immense telescope and an entirely new principle, this telescope was transported to South Africa from New England. It was said to be many times larger than any other telescope in the world at this time. They say it measured 24 feet in diameter, and it weighed 7 tons. With this new telescope, world-renowned astronomer Sir John Herschel and his companion, Dr. Grant, mentioned earlier, documented and described numerous animals who resided on the moon. On a clear night with limited cloud coverage, this newfangled telescope could peer to the very surface of this closest heavenly body to Earth, the moon. And what did these seasoned experts discover? They saw bison roaming the lunar surface. They saw single-horned goats, mini zebras, bipedal tailless beavers as well. But the most important discovery? Bat-like, winged humanoids named Verspertilio-homo, see the writing, which translated from Latin can mean man-bat, bat-man, or man-bats. So these winged humanoids, these batmen, also built temples. They had civilization, they had society, they had religion. Observations of the lunar surface detailed an interesting geography as well. It included massive craters, enormous amethyst crystals, rushing rivers, and lush vegetation. And these wonderful discoveries would have continued. But the wondrous telescope would be destroyed by the sun. Not the newspaper we talked about, you know, that giant glowing ball of fire that's up in the sky. The sun, utilizing the lens to act as burning glass, would cause the observatory to burn to the ground. You know, the sun was reflecting the light. Now, the sun didn't decide to do this. It's just what happened according, to nature. So this great and wonderful discovery, this thing that, the Great Moon discovery, as you probably put together, it was fake news. Fake. It was a hoax. Great Moon Hoax of 1835. This was the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. You see, the newspaper, The Sun, was first started in 1833. Being relatively low in sales, it tried something. On August 21st of 1835, it advertised that it would reprint a scientific series, first published in the Edinburgh Courant. And after the 6-part series was completed, after circulation kind of went up, the Sun admitted the articles were fabricated. They never retracted the articles, though, but we can kind of put why they did this. See, according to the legend, the Sun's circulation increased dramatically because of the hoax, and it remained permanently greater than before. Thereby, it established the Sun as a successful newspaper. It brought this journal to international fame, and the hoax resembled crime reports. It allowed the readers to play detective. They were trying to discover the truth. Now, the degree in which the hoax had increased the paper's circulation, that has certainly been exaggerated in popular accounts of the event. It was not discovered to be a hoax for several weeks after its publication, and even then, the newspaper did not issue a retraction, like I said. A little bit more, Herschel, Sir John Herschel, he was initially amused by the hoax. He noted that his real observations, they could never be as exciting as what the Sun had published. So, at first he kind of took it in good fun, but eventually, later in his life, it's been reported that he became annoyed. He hated answering questions about, from people who believed the hoax was serious. I guess after a while, it stopped being funny and started just being annoying to him. So as I mentioned, Dr. Andrew Grant. He was the one who wrote these articles for the Sun. He was Sir John Herschel's, companion in all of this. He wasn't real. He was fake. Once that was reviewed, the writer of the article, he wasn't first known to the public. Authorship, though, has since then been attributed to a man named Richard Adam Locke. He lived from 1800 to 1871. He was a reporter who, in August of 1835, was working for the Sun. Locke did end up publicly admitting he was the author, and in 1840, he wrote a letter to a weekly paper, The New World. But despite Locke's claims, despite him, saying he was the writer, rumors persisted that others were involved in these articles. Two other men have been noted in connection with the hoax. The first I'll talk about is Jean Nicolas Nicolet, a French astronomer. He was traveling in America at this time, though he was in Mississippi, not New York, when the moon hoax issues appeared. And then there was Lewis Gaylord Clark. He was the editor of the Knickerbocker, a literary magazine. However, there is no good evidence to indicate that anyone but Locke was the author of the hoax. So if we go on, assuming that Locke was the author, his intentions were probably at first to create a sensational story which would increase the sales of the Sun. It had, like I said, it only started a couple years before, so probably just trying to increase publication and inspiration. The second would have been to ridicule some of the more extravagant astronomical theories that had been put forth recently or in the prior decades. Locke probably had meant for the hoax to act as a satire to see how science can be influenced by the thoughts on religion. I guess, for instance, here we've got in 1824, Franz von Paula Gruithuisen, professor of astronomy at Munich University, had published a paper titled Discovery of Many Distinct Traces of Lunar Inhabitants, especially of one of their colossal buildings. Okay, so these titles back in the day were so long. I mean, we don't have article titles like that. Now they're quick and to the point. But anyways, one theory in that paper is responsible for inspiring the articles written by Locke is because in that paper, Gruithuisen claimed to have observed various shades of color on the lunar surface, which he correlated with climate and vegetation zones. He also observed lines of geometric shapes, which he felt indicated that was the existence of walls, roads, fortifications, and cities.
Hey there, I see you have found some content from Odds and Ends by Jar. So while I got your attention, let me tell you about the types of content we have to offer. First, we have what originally started the channel, How Are We Here? It's my little series on how other, usually older, cultures and religions say we got here. From Australia's Dreamtime to the Christian Gnostics, they are oftentimes very interesting. Hopefully, I'll have a new one posted within the month, so check out the playlist to catch up. My favorites were the Norse and Hindu videos. Judge for yourself which ones you liked the most. Alrighty. Thanks for listening to what we here at Odds and Ends by Jar have to offer, and who really knows what subject will pique my interest next time? Not me. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel so the content pops up in your stream. Now, back to the content you were consuming.
All right, and to add a little bit of context, Locke's sensational reports were not really out of place in the context of the mass production of penny press newspapers. The newspapers like the New York Sun, which received much of their income from advertisements, a business practice that made that sustainable was to write more shocking stories, more sensationalistic journalism. And it was the first newspaper to report on murders, suicides, personal events, and divorces. Less about the news and everything going on, but more about the single people. So, as these stories kind of helped the Sun attract new audience, a bigger audience, Locke probably thought something even more sensational would reach out to many more audience members to pick up the newspapers, and thus advertisers would want their advertisements in their newspapers. So it was just a way to bring the money in. We kind of see that in today. You know, a lot of the clickbaity thumbnails, the sensationalistic headlines. It's all just trying to pull you in, and that's what they were doing. Just think it's hilarious that they lied about Batman on the moon. I still think it's amazing. You know, one of the things I hadn't mentioned earlier, but I should have thrown up on the screen, was the Sun also produced lithographs of these things. And I mean, obviously, we all get pulled in with stories on the interwebs now. You know, it's very hard to tell what was real and what was false. But back in the day, I guess these people, probably the public, thought that newspapers were going to report the truth, the fact. It is something that you can see they definitely got away from for the audience, to create their audience. And we kind of see the same today, especially if you looked into the political sides, the right and left. They've got their own news stations to pull in their members. So if I were to wrap up this video, um, I would just say that the moon hoax, I think that would be amazing to discover, you know, alien life. Say hello to my little friend. But anyways, it's I like science fiction. I think it's neat to think about all that stuff, and to have been alive at a time where you could be taken in. I imagine the excitement, the nervousness of these people reading those articles, and it just makes me wish that we could have something like that in today. Otherwise, I don't really have much else video wise. This was just something that I heard from Joe Scott. He's a YouTuber, a very successful YouTuber, I guess. On the YouTube, I watched it a few years ago. I'll throw up the thumbnail so you can see it. You won't be able to click on it, but you'll be able to see it. It was one of the hoaxes, I believe, in his 5 Victorian hoaxes that are hard to believe. Watched it years ago, and this story was always the one in there that really pulled me in. You can go watch it if you want, but, you know, just go find it. Otherwise, I don't really have anything else except thanks for tuning in if you did. Thanks for watching all the way through if you did. And take care. Keep safe.
Hey, thanks for listening to this odd topic as I go off on an odd tangent to what I usually do. But please, check out the channel and click on a couple other videos. Maybe watch all of my shorts because those have crappy viewership ratings. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please share, subscribe, comment, and what was the other one? Oh, and like the video. It helps. And take care. Keep safe.